Hi there. Do you think that you suffer from imposter syndrome? If you do, and if you would like some hints and tips to help you identify and to overcome your imposter syndrome, then you are in the right place. I'm Jane from Jane Phillips Coaching, and I help individuals, professionals, and business owners to overcome their imposter syndrome so that they can have the confidence to say yes to those really great opportunities that help us to build our business, build our career, and ultimately earn more money. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have. You might be watching on LinkedIn, you might be watching on Facebook, or you might be watching me on my YouTube channel. If you have any questions at all whilst I'm on live, please pop them in the comments and I will answer those questions for you. So I'm going to be chatting for about 20 minutes, half an hour, something like that, about imposter syndrome. So I wanted to also tell you about some of the exciting things that are coming up. So next week will be the 2nd year anniversary of Jane Phillips Coaching. So next week, there's going to be all sorts of exciting things going on. There's going to be some freebies. There's going to be some offers. There's going to be a masterclass as well. If you're interested, follow me on social media, whether that's, LinkedIn, Facebook or Instagram, and you will hear more about it. So I will be starting to announce all of that on Friday. So if you're interested, follow me and look out for the great things that are going to be happening next week. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was actually a conversation that I had with one of my clients who said to me, but why? Why do people experience imposter syndrome? Why does it happen? So today I want to take you through the process of imposter syndrome. What actually, where it comes from, and why we feel like we do. So the imposter syndrome, the same with many of the feelings that we experience and many of our behaviors that we exhibit through our life, are often rooted in things from our past. And so what I mean by that is, when you're a child or when you're in your early career, there will have been people that have been particularly influential, and you will pick up information from them. And to some extent, you will also have used them as role models. I'm sure that you can appreciate that and you can understand that idea is very familiar. So for instance, when we were little, it's our parents or our carers who are having the most input, perhaps siblings. And then once we go to school, we've got the influence of our teachers and we've got the influence of our friends. We've also got the influence of people that, perhaps we respect, or maybe people that we see on television, people that we watch regularly, celebrities. And then when we start work, it's going to be, our direct managers. It might be the CEO of the organization that we're working for. And it will be our work colleagues as well. And so what is said to us and the situation that is said in will have an influence about what we think about something, about what we believe, about how we act, about what's right and what's wrong, about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And the third thing that plays into that, in addition to what is said and the situation that it's said to us, is also our character, our behavior. So you've got those three things that play in, which means that the way that I interpret something could be completely different to the way somebody else interprets exactly the same words in exactly the same circumstances. So that's one of the reasons why we're so individual, because when you mix all of that together, we all end up with a different belief of what is right and what's wrong, what's good and what's bad, what's acceptable and what's not, what's a success and what is a failure. So as an example, if perhaps a teacher would judge a piece of work that you've submitted, and basically, let's say it was an essay, and they have judged it on your grammar, whether your spelling was correct, whether your grammar was correct, rather than the content of the story. And they were expecting perfection. So in your mind, you believe that success is perfection, and perfection equals success. And that's something that will have carried with you throughout your younger life and your early career and later into your career. So it's those things that are said, the situation that they're said to us, and our own behavior, our own personality that decides how we interpret those comments. So one of the things that is really important with whether we feel imposter syndrome or not is whether we believe that we are good at something. So imposter syndrome is typically the persistent belief that we don't think we're as good as other people, we're as clever as other people, we're as successful as other people, even though, or in spite of, the fact that other people think we are. So actually, it's how we feel about ourselves, not how other people think about us. It's how we feel about ourselves. So you can see that our core beliefs are what has determined how we feel about ourselves. So with imposter syndrome, the reason why you experience imposter syndrome is because you feel that you don't succeed. You haven't succeeded in a particular task. Therefore, you haven't done it as well as somebody else. You haven't succeeded, so you're not as clever as somebody else. Because you are judging your success, the success of that task, on your own beliefs of what success is, not what somebody else's belief of what success is. Okay, so it's how you feel about success, what you believe success looks like, that forms the basis of your imposter syndrome. Now, there are 5 personality types. Some people think that they are definitely one of these. Other people feel, well, I'm a bit of a mixture, but most of us will find that they tend to be more like one of these particular types. And those 5 types are the natural genius, the perfectionist, the soloist, the expert, and the superhuman, the superhero. And each of those different personality types sees success in a different way. So a natural genius is somebody who believes that they can just do something for the first time without having to read anything, without having to be taught, that they can just do it and it will be perfect. So as an example, somebody who might think that they could just drive a car because they've seen it driven on television, or they've sat beside somebody who could drive. And therefore, they think that they don't need any lessons, they don't need to be shown. Now, driving a car is an extreme situation because most of us would not think that. But someone who is a natural genius believes that they don't need to be shown anything, that they can just do it. Social media is a good example, that they know how to use Facebook, for instance. They know how to set up their account properly so that it's got the right permissions, the right friends, the right data on there. And of course, actually, we don't know unless we're told, unless we read, unless we're shown. But a natural genius will always think that they have failed if they haven't been able to just do it first time and get it right. So if they weren't able to be amazing at something immediately without any help, any support, they will always feel that they've failed. Typically, a natural genius might be somebody who, was really good at school, and everyone used to say, oh, yeah, Joan, she's the clever one of the family. Oh, she's always top of the class. So you've got such high expectations that you always think you can just walk into a situation and get it right first time. But you wouldn't expect somebody else to do that. You wouldn't judge somebody else if they made a mistake the first time they had done something, because that's normal. But we put this really high bar against ourselves. If we don't drift in there, get it right, we failed. We will always feel as if we are not good enough, but nobody else judges us like that. The second type, the perfectionist, is somebody who feels that unless the piece of work that they've done, or the phone call that they've meant, or the cake that they've baked, or the report that they've written, unless it's absolutely perfect, they will have failed. Even though their boss might look at this report that they've written and not see the imperfections that they see. It might be perhaps some grammar. It might be a diagram in there that just doesn't really look right in their mind. So a perfectionist will continue to over-perfect. They'll keep tweaking things and changing things, and it doesn't add any additional value. So their manager or somebody else would look at what they've done and say, yeah, that's great. That's good enough. And if they had looked at it 10 minutes later, after you'd tweaked it and changed it, they wouldn't think it was any better at all. They would still say, yeah, that's great. So you've spent that time achieving nothing additional. But to your mind, unless you believe it's perfect, you will fail. You will not be a success. You will not be as good as other people. So that's the perfectionist. The expert, if you feel that you have to know absolutely everything about a particular topic, then you are very likely to be the behavior type of an expert, somebody who feels they don't know enough unless they've read every book. They've got their qualifications as high as they can, so they'll do course after course. Perhaps they might do a bachelor's, a master's, and go on, and they're constantly learning. And it's not that constantly learning, is a bad thing, because it's not, that's part of the journey that we do. But it's that feeling of not being good enough unless I know everything that there is to know, as opposed to learning because we're curious, because we genuinely want to know more. So there's a difference there. So somebody who always feels that they have to know more than everybody else is always going to fail, because there's always someone who knows more than you. There's always someone who is better qualified. There's always someone who is probably a bit more of an expert on something than you are. So the expert, they're setting themselves up to fail, because they will never achieve that point where they know absolutely more than everybody else. But anyone else looking at them doesn't expect them to know absolutely everything. Anybody else would feel it's quite normal if they ask them a question. They said, do you know, I'm not sure about that. That's really normal. So it's the expectation that experts put upon themselves. The fourth type is the soloist. So if you are the sort of person who believes that you've only done a job well if you've done it by yourself, you've had no help from anybody else and no support, you are likely to be a soloist if that's how you feel. And what happens is that you will never feel that you have been successful when you work collaboratively. You'll always think, well, actually, it's only, it's what someone else contributed that was good. You will never feel that you've contributed your best because it wasn't all your work. So if that's the expectation that you put on yourself, you will always feel like you don't succeed, because life's not like that. When we collaborate with people, when we share, when we do work together, it's a synergy. It's better. The end result is better than the sum of the parts. So being part of a synergy, working with other people rather than doing everything on your own is a really positive thing to do. But that's another reason why you might feel that you're not good enough, because you didn't do the piece of work on your own. And the final trait there is the superhero. So if you are the sort of person who feels that you need to do a job, but whilst you're doing that job, you have to keep all the other plates spinning, then that's how you're going to feel. That is what success will look like for you. But the reality is that we're not perfect. We can't juggle many different balls at the same time. If you think that success means you've completed a job and everything else in your life is going smoothly at the same time, then again, you are setting yourself up to fail, because we may be able to do that at times, but often we can't. Often there are other things going on that don't quite go to plan. That's normal. Would you expect anybody else to be able to do something and be perfect at everything else? Juggle all the plates, bring everything in on time. Would you expect that of somebody else? No, you'd expect them to be human. So again, the superhuman thinks success is only there if they can, multitask, keep all the plates spinning, keep all the balls in the air. Um, but that isn't reality. So a superhero will always feel that they haven't succeeded, that they're not as good as somebody else. So all of those traits, all of those different types, the natural genius, the expert, the soloist, the superhuman, and the perfectionist, will all feel as if they have failed because they haven't succeeded in their own mind. They will have succeeded in somebody else's. And that's where imposter syndrome comes from. It's when we don't believe we've done a good job, even though somebody else thinks that we have. It's the way that we judge our success compared to how other people judge our success. And those 5 behavior types that will have started when we were young. They'll have been reinforced as we're growing up and when we're starting in our early career. It's those that will determine when and why we experience our imposter syndrome. So that's a sort of a real quick delve, if you like, into those different behavior types, to explain why we get imposter syndrome, why it affects us, why it's there. The last thing I'll talk about is just sometimes how to identify it, how to notice it, because there are things that we do which are classic imposter syndrome behavior, but we don't realize that. We will put a positive spin on it. A good example of that is when we avoid something. So we might have a really good opportunity to maybe collaborate with something or do something really exciting for our business. And we avoid the situation. We don't do it. We turn the offer down. And in our mind, we make up a really good reason as to why we can't do that. But I can't do that on that day because I've got a really important meeting. Now, actually, that really important meeting might not be quite so important. Maybe you could reorganize that, reschedule that, so that you could do this exciting thing. But you convince yourself in your mind that this meeting is really important. It has to happen then. We can't delay it. It can't be deferred. We can't reschedule. But what we're actually doing is we are avoiding a situation that we don't feel comfortable with. Something that perhaps we're a little bit fearful because we don't know enough. We haven't got the expertise that we need, or perhaps it's just really taking us into our stretch zone, out of our comfort zone. So Next time you say no to something, ask yourself, is this a genuine reason why I can't do this? Or is this an excuse? Am I saying that this other meeting, this other thing is more important? Am I avoiding a really good opportunity? And if so, why am I avoiding that? The other thing that we do is we procrastinate. So when there's a really good opportunity and we're out of our comfort zone, we're not feeling completely comfortable, um, we procrastinate, we put it off, we convince ourselves that something else is more important, and we do that first. Hey, that filing that we have to do, well, that is so important. Our business will just fall apart if we don't get our filing done first. We can tell us all sorts of stories to convince ourselves that procrastination is okay and justified. But actually, there's something else going on there. So, you want to call it out. You want to say, I know what's going on here. You want to be able to recognize it and to break it. Break it by getting up, going out of the room, doing something different, get some fresh air, just put your mind in a different place. Will help you to overcome your imposter syndrome. I have many other tips for overcoming imposter syndrome, which you can tack into on my free resources. But yeah, so we've talked about why we experience imposter syndrome. We've talked about the different personality types that we might be. So which one did you think that you identified with? Or maybe you were a mixture. Maybe you're a mixture of those ones. Let me know in the comments, because I'd love to know, absolutely love to know. And then we've talked about some of the behavior that we exhibit when we are experiencing the imposter syndrome that we can sometimes spot. I've talked about 2 today: avoiding things or procrastinating. So when you see yourself avoiding something, or when you notice that you're procrastinating, just stop and ask yourself, why? Why am I procrastinating? Why am I avoiding? What is it that I'm worried about? What's the worst thing that could happen if I got on and did that, or said yes to that opportunity? Really unpick it and work out what's going on in your mind. I hope that's been useful for you. It's been great to talk to you today. If you'd like to know more, jump onto my website at janephillipscoaching.co.uk. You will find some blogs and podcasts there that can help you with your imposter syndrome. I'm always here Wednesday lunchtimes on my lives, so you can get some more hints and tips there. I also have my imposter syndrome reset course, which is a self-paced course that people can do. And so please get in touch if you'd like some more details about that. If you would like to work with me on a one-to-one basis to help you overcome your imposter syndrome so that you can build your business or build your career and earn more money, then get in touch at janephillipscoaching.co.uk. I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week. Have a good week. Bye.